That was probably the coolest part about it. One of the parts about being off the grid for us. That's how I know her. I've never not been connected. So. We have one on the end.
Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of Nebraska statutes, the notice of this meeting was given on May 2nd, 2000. Oh man, it got really quiet. 2019. The meeting will convene at 6:30 p.m. and visitors may obtain a request to be heard from staff or any presentation they may have for the meeting. In accordance with policy, the request to be heard forms must be submitted to the secretary within the first 5 minutes of the board meeting in order to be heard at this meeting. Agenda items are subject to reordering at the discretion of the board president. Please attend the entire meeting to assure that you're able to hear any discussion. Thank you. Pursuant to Section 841411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education of Douglas County School District 0001 and the Board of Educational Service Unit Number 19 will be held on Monday, May 20th, 2019 at 5 p.m. in the Board Meeting Room of the Teacher Administrative Center at 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the Office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 841412 of Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the board meeting room on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance by the Bryan High School Color Guard presenting the colors.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Out.
Thank you. And thank you, Sergeant Major Foltz and the Bryan High School Color Guard. I believe they were all freshmen and sophomores, so exciting. Moving on to our OPS Vision and Mission Statement, Dr. Holman.
First, our vision statement. Every student, every day, prepared for success, and our mission. Omaha Public Schools prepares all students to excel in college, career, and life.
Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Here.
Gadding,
Present.
Holman,
Here.
Cracky,
Here.
Perlman,
Here.
Ryan,
Present.
Smith,
Here.
Snipe,
Here.
Snow.
Here.
9 present, sorry.
Thank you. Moving on to School Spotlight with Mrs. Monique Farmer.
Good evening, Board President Snow, members of the Board, and Superintendent Dr. Logan. Tonight, the OPS Proud Spotlight is on Benson High Magnet School and the Faces of Benson mural. The mural sits just above the main offices at Benson High Magnet School. It's a beautiful mural displaying the face of 4 current Benson students and 2 alumni. Benson High students had to submit an essay to determine who would be represented on the mural. 4 student essays were selected, and these students are here with us this evening. Their essays were chosen because they showed true character of the school and representation of its diverse population. Ang Mia discussed what it meant to be welcomed as a refugee student at Benson High School. Paradise Sullivan wrote on the importance of academies and how teachers have been integral in her growth as a learner and as a leader. Abigail Meffert discussed the multiple generations of her family members who've attended Benson High and explained how it is truly her home away from home. And Lamar Brown discussed how his teachers believed in him and how his face would be a reminder to anyone walking the halls that success is possible. We commend each of these students for sharing their stories, which will now become part of a long-term art piece cherished by many generations to come at Benson High. We'd like to recognize those who made this project possible. Special thanks goes to the Benson Art Department and its administrative team, former Benson High graduate Reggie LaFleur, who painted the mural, the Nebraska Arts Council for providing grants, the Omaha Public Schools Foundation, the Benson Alumni Association, and the Benson Legacy Foundation. At this time, I'd like to welcome the principal of Benson Magnet High School, Tom Wagner, to the podium for some brief remarks.
Good evening. So a tiny bit of history behind this mural. I had a couple of ideas going around in my head. As construction finished, we had a lot of white space, particularly in the commons area. And I thought I had a couple of ideas that I ran past the right people, because those ideas were appropriately vetoed, and I was then told what we were going to do there, which is for the best. But I can't stress enough about our art department, how hard they worked to organize this with Reggie LaFleur, a graduate who has since come back a couple of times to work with our kids. He was at the dedication, and these kids, as as you read their essays, as well as the other essays too, they're very impressive, and you get a feel for how Benson is their home. And these 4 students are really a true cross-section of the Benson High School population. With that, I'll turn it over to them to read their essays.
Yes, indeed. And before you start, if you could say your name and what grade?
I'm Lamar Brown. I'm an 11th grader. Me, the face of Benson, there is a flaw with that question. I, Lamar Brown, wants to be one of the face of a Benson High. I accepted this request to hopefully stand out. What makes me special, my involvement within Benson, and the positive influence from Benson will allow you to envision why I should be one of the faces from Benson High. What makes myself special is I'm the only one who acts exactly like me, sounds like me, and more. I always find myself caring for people, including people I may not even be acquainted with. I have the ability to keep trying even when times are the toughest. I like to do things differently because I like to be different. I tend to help a lot and put others before myself due to the fact that I am a gentleman. Benson is a pleasant school, and you'll find yourself participating in any activity of your liking. I am involved in JROTC in various ways. I am in JROTC staff under the title of Company B Commander. I am on armed drill and unarmed drill. I volunteered for Courtesy Patrol, and the following year I will be the new commander for armed drill to lead us marching proudly and confidently into competition. Other than JROTC, I'm just an average student making my way to graduation slowly but surely. Positive impacts does play a role in Benson High. The years here at Benson have helped me become the person I am today, stronger and more prepared. The staff here actually wants to help, and in this society, that is what is most needed. With the help of my favorite staff members, Joanna Hell, who helped me believe in myself and keep pushing, Paula Vazano, who aids her students in being prepared for the concrete jungle, Colonel Leidick, who teaches me leadership and how to become a better citizen, and Eric McLaughlin, who made me see that one can always make a way through anything, and all you have to do is believe. Benson High has changed my life. I am hoping to fill in a position in the middle for a message, not to gloat, not to brag, not to show off, not to feel more superior, but to show people that they can do anything if they put their mind to it. All one has to do is believe, and they will achieve. I want to show that an average student can make a mark in Benson, that it isn't just the rich kids or the very intelligent kids capable of accomplishing great things, but in fact that anyone can accomplish great things. All we have to do is get up and try our absolute best. Give life a meaning.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Al-Mumya, and my essay involved, as I walk in the school each day, I see many trophies that Benson students have earned, many from different backgrounds and cultures. I can't stop to think, but hope to see my name up there sometime too. We are one of the most diverse schools in OPS and in the States. I am very proud to be a part of this community. As a student who's a refugee from Thailand, and I came here when I was in the age of 10. My name is Al-Mumya, and I'm 11th grade, and this is why I should be the face of Benson. Life back in refugee was not easy. Kids easily take the wrong path if their parents do not show them the way. My parents taught me a lot and made me who I am. Most importantly, to try and do nothing but the best for me and my siblings. That is why when they had the opportunity to come to America, they took it, even though meaning they have to left their family behind. When we first got here, I went to Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School, and I got bullied a lot for being shorter than my peers, which has been made worse by me not being able to speak English. Once middle school come around, my English got a bit better, but nothing much changed, and I felt out of place. That all changed when I walked through the Benson. Benson High School was almost like a fresh start to my life in America. In Benson, I hear about opportunities that I never knew existed. I know I had to work hard and get involved, as there is no money in my family to pay for college. It is on me if I plan to go, and which I do. As a freshman, I joined Thrive and MT Java, Key Club, and other clubs. 2 years later, I'm still part in both. In both these clubs, excellence is asked for in our academics as we focus on volunteering in our communities. I eventually ran for a secretary position in Key Club. I was proud to earn it via elections. Apart from MT Java, I also participate in police athletic for community engagement soccer league over the summer with many of my classmates. Sophomore year started off great. I joined tennis team and was honored to play for my school for the first time. Since winter was boring and not much to do, I decided to join the book club. The book kept me busy until end of winter. Then Upper Bound, Math and Science, decided to work with Benson, and I signed up for it, and it wasn't easy to get in the program. You must have a high GPA and a recommendation from teachers to get into the program. But it was all worth it. Because the program provides tutoring at the City Light with college students to help us with our homework or any work that we don't understand. We also do Saturday colleges where we get tour and help us decide our college for the future. The best thing was that we get paid for doing, being in the program, so I couldn't thank the program enough for it. I did an awesome job in school, and I got a chance to be in the National Honor Society. I need to have, a high GPA and write an essay and why I should be in NHS, and I did all those and got accepted. All in all, high school was getting better and better. Now I'm a junior, and most people say it's the most important year of this high school. And yeah, almost the end, and yeah, I can feel that. And I continued playing tennis when the school started back up again. And this year, the school started the new ambassador program, and I was one of the chosen students to be, a member of it. And being a student ambassador means that you're a role model and a student leader. And we went to ambassador training at UNO for a day, and when there was like event, like an open house or something, like we are expected to be there and help out with the event. This year, we also earned sponsor for Key Club, so 2 other student officers and I went to the Key Leader Retreat on the weekend, and I got to learn more about what leadership is all about. And Upper Bound created an engineering team to compete in the Society of American Military Engineering, and I was in it. And after picking a project, and our group get to choose design, economic, or community team, and no one stepped up for the manager, so I did, with the knowledge from the Key Leader Retreat that I learned. And yeah, I'm here at school with a smiling face every morning, and I leave when the late buses leave and strive for a top academic involving numerous programs. And most of all, I'm leader recognized by the school and various clubs. Whether a student who may be better in the classroom or perform better on the field, I might come to the mind of staff I know that means to be Bunny, and I feel deserve to be the face of Benson, as I already am the face of Benson. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abigail Mefford, and I am an 11th grader. Benson is not just any high school. It is my home. From before the sun peaks up over the horizon to way past when the street lights flicker on, I'm here, and I love every part of it. I have put blood, sweat, and tears into this school to not only better myself, but the people and environment around me. Being the face of Benson is more than just a painting on the wall. It is a lasting impression of your hard work and dedication to the school and the community around you, and most importantly, a reflection on your very own achievements. It has more value than a homecoming or prom queen title, and holds more volume than a crown. It is a colorful legacy etched into the crevices of your hometown, this little big piece of Omaha, Nebraska. Redefining Benson's reputation throughout these past 3 years have been quite a journey, but that journey did not begin with me. A large portion of my family were bunnies as well. Way back to when my grandmother attended, class of 66, all the way up until when my most recently graduated sibling, Gabriel Mefford, class of 18, they have all inspired me to give back to my community as well as continuing to spread positivity and wellness to those around me. I am currently a junior, and I feel so proud to say that I have accomplished so many things within these 3 short years of high school. I am currently in cheerleading, track and field, and color guard for marching band. I am a member of National Honor Society Ambassadors, and I am a Skills USA officer as well as marching band's leadership team. As for academics, I am in honors and AP, and I am a second-year dual-enrolled student through Midland and UNO. I strive to maintain good grades while managing all of the above as well as work and family. I want to expand on cheerleading a little bit because I personally believe that it is one of the major reasons I am so bound to Benson. Freshman year, I was awarded most spirited out of my entire class, and I never thought I would ever feel so moved to continue that spirit. Since joining the squad in 2016, I have grown and blossomed as an individual, which has allowed me to radiate my positivity and energy onto others, contributing to the uplifting atmosphere that Benson has reclaimed. Benson High School is truly my home away from home. Since my very first steps, I never would have dreamed that those tiny little toddler feet clumsily scampering across Benson's football field would grow into much larger shoes, taking on much more responsibilities than I ever imagined, and doing it all with grace and a smile on her face. All of this would not have been as easily accomplished without the influence and support of my peers and teachers. Many personal challenges have been dealt with in the lifetime of these 3 years, but these bumps in the road have molded me into the individual I am today. I want to make my mark here at Benson, and I believe a portrait of myself on those color-hungry walls in the Commons is a valuable, creative way to do so. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to read for Paradise because she's sick, so she can't really speak right now. But she's Paradise Sullivan. She's a junior as well. Okay. It takes great effort and dedication to be the face of Benson High School, or any school, company, or organization for that matter. To be a face of Benson means that you represent what the school stands for, not only inside the classroom, but outside of it as well. It is the integrity and commitment that one holds that allows them to stand out. In turn, by having representatives of a school like Benson only improves the perception of it and ends in a win-win for all. I believe I exude each of these distinct traits and more, on and off campus. My character is one of the things that helps me stand out. I keep all things positive through optimistic outlook and attitude. From my attitude towards schoolwork down to the people that I surround myself with, I strive for positivity in everything I do. I am also extremely kind as I treat everyone with the respect they deserve firsthand. I believe that great leaders all possess the character traits of honesty and integrity. I am confident I possess those, especially when I am consistently earning good grades of mostly A's and a few B's. My self-discipline and determination for success definitely pushes me to the finish line. My involvement at Benson also helps me represent my pride for this school on and off campus as well. I am involved in the National Honor Society and have been enjoying it. With the 30-hour service requirement and more, it's teaching me the importance of involvement and dedication to success. I am also a part of Benson Student Council, with this being my second year of membership. As of last semester, I was accepted into the Benson Student Ambassadors team, and getting involved with this group is definitely no regret. Last but not least, I am a member of the Health Occupation Students of America, or HOSA organization, and looking forward to participating in spring competitions. Benson High School has had a very unique influence on me that I don't think I could find anywhere else. This school has academies put in place that actually help students discover their passions and acquire potential career interests. I am currently a part of the Health Academy, and it has helped me tremendously by making sure I take the necessary classes for my career interests. The Benson staff are also extremely helpful and never hesitate to say good things about me. There's truly no place like Benson. Benson High is definitely one of a kind. It offers things that no other school does, and as a result, pushes me to be one of a kind, to stand out wherever I go. I believe I am a great pick for the face of Benson, as I represent all things that Benson stands for, from my character and overall influence on others to my involvement and contribution to this school. I am Benson.
Thank you guys so much. Could we have the students and the staff come to the podium, and staff, especially the teachers, explain a little bit about the mural and the magazines that we have as well. And then we'll open up for comments and questions from the board.
I have a question.
So you have the We Are Benson mural book. That's just kind of a,
And by the way, everybody on the board, you get one of these fabulous books.
yes, which thank you, Mr. Snow, for coming to visit us. That was really nice. We have, so the We Are Benson mural book just kind of chronicles the entire journey from start to finish of the mural. It includes essays of students who didn't win but also deserve to be recognized. It also includes alumni essays because alumni also submitted essays to determine who would be the alumni faces. And then it chronicles Reggie's work, which this is one of the shirts we made. Reggie is an 04 grad of Benson, as Mr. Wagner mentioned, which is also really cool. So we have a lot of Benson pride in this. And then the other booklet is our second edition, which is The Carrot, which is a literary arts magazine that was started last year. And last year we won the NCTE Realm Award for that magazine with an excellent rating. So we're very proud of it. We'll see what this year's award does.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll open up to questions from the board, starting off with Mr. Smith. I believe he is your rep, so he gave me the eyes.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of you guys and all the things that you're doing over there at Benson. I actually had talked with Ms. Farmer about having you guys come here and kind of present the mural, so I'm glad that that actually happened. And I was also honored to be at Honors Night recently and to see all the kids' hard work, dedication, and scholarships and things like that. Like, you guys are really on the right track at Benson, and I'm very proud to do great work there.
Any other? Ms. Snipe?
You know, when I was in high school, I spent all 4 years in ROTC as well, so I was really happy to hear that. But I also noticed your principal, and I was watching him as he was watching all of you guys, and he is very, very proud, and I can just see it beaming from him. I'm really glad to hear that you guys are all getting involved in organizations right now. You don't know how far that will take you, and it's going to take you very, very far. So I think we're all really, really proud of you, and I'm really curious to know what some of your plans are once you're done with high school.
Don't all run up to the mic at once.
Right now I'm still kind of deciding it, but right now my picture right now is when I graduate, I plan on talking to a recruiter my senior year for the Army recruiter, and then after that, you know, go to basic while attending college as well, and hopefully becoming a physical therapist as well.
After high school, I plan to attend a college and maybe get an engineering degree with a minor of maybe graphic design.
After high school, I plan on most likely getting a business degree, as well as hopefully cheering a college and studying music.
Awesome.
Paradise is wants to enter the medical field as an OBGYN.
Wow. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Ms. Cracky?
I'm looking at the book. It's so colorful. It's so pretty. I wasn't able to bring it up on the computer. You know, it was alluded to, but I couldn't find it there. But I have your book. And where is Yolanda? Is Yolanda here tonight? I mean, that is truly, this is one of the great pictures. I mean, I don't know what they could charge for some of these. They're so gorgeous.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned, that's Lavender Williams who did that painting. And that's actually the first piece of art I've ever bought. I bought that.
I'm thinking.
I
you
do
know,
thought it was beautiful.
It's just, it pops out at you for sure. So you beat me to it, I guess.
Yeah, so the Carrot is 9 through 12 Benson students. It's their art and their poetry.
Gorgeous. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for this. We want to show our gratitude by giving you guys a limited edition OPS Proud Pin because you make us OPS proud. We love to shake your hand and congratulate you and then take a group photo with staff as well as your principal as well. So everybody, please give these students and staff a round of applause again. And we would like to shake your hands.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
All right, now that's why it's so good. I'm going to say something.
Congratulations.
Can you take a picture? Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I would say,
I'll shake your hand today.
That's okay, we'll just
Congratulations.
Mark, can I say something? Mark, I want to say something about that wonderful principal. One of the reasons all those things are so wonderful there, I have known him for a long time. And I have also known that there is no way that people
Get
do
real
not
close
behave
and
and do
close.
the right thing at the school, because if you don't, he will chase you down with the truck after school and bring you back in. And he is still doing it today. So to him, we need to congratulate him because he has it all done.
Big smiles. Big smiles. You look great. Thank you.
Thank you guys again.
That's really fun. That's
All right, moving on to our treasurer's report, Mrs. Byrd.
Board President Snow, Superintendent Dr. Logan, members of the board, the financial statements for the period ended March 31st, 2019 have been completed and uploaded for your review.
Thank you. Moving on to Superintendent Dr. Logan.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, and those here in attendance and watching at home. This week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. One of the things that we want to celebrate today, and as I tweeted, to me, Teacher Appreciation Week is every week. I'm the daughter of a teacher, the mother of a teacher, and a former teacher myself. But I want to begin my remarks by talking about the daily impact on the lives of our students, as was witnessed here today by the students who spoke so highly of the teachers who believe in them, sometimes when they haven't yet learned to believe in themselves. A week and a half ago, we honored 15 of our top teachers at the 2019 Alice Buffett Outstanding Teacher Awards Dinner hosted by the Oracle of Omaha, Mr. Warren Buffett. Each teacher received a $10,000 check and a $1,000 gift card from McDonald's. Congratulations to the following teachers: Jennifer Bailey, kindergarten teacher, Indian Hill; Kelly Baker, first grade teacher, Standing Bear; Leslie Baxter, special education teacher, Chandler View; Paige Dalton, social studies teacher, Burke High School; Jay Doherty, social studies teacher, Buffett Magnet Middle; Maggie Douglas, fifth grade teacher, Wilson Focus School; David Groff, vocal music teacher, Burke High; Lacey Hanson, language arts teacher, Norris Middle School; Jessica Korth, math teacher, Bryan Middle School; Keith Kramer, information technology, robotics teacher, Mars Magnet Middle; Vanessa Cruz, first grade teacher, Picot Elementary; Michelle Meyer, English as a second language teacher at Bell Ryan Elementary School; Desiree Scott, first grade teacher, Crest Ridge Magnet Elementary School; Kimberly Weichert, science teacher, Buffett Magnet Middle School; and last but certainly not least, Donna Wilcox, language arts teacher at Mars Magnet Middle School. Each of these teachers represents teaching excellence, and we appreciate and thank you for your service to our students and families. We will continue the updates today with letting everyone know that the virtual school has open enrollment from now until open through July 31st. The virtual school is a full-time, tuition-free virtual school within Omaha Public Schools. It's the first K through 11 virtual school in Nebraska. Instruction is delivered through a blended learning environment, combining the benefits of the virtual and traditional classrooms. It is an option for homeschoolers. The blended learning enhances online learning with opportunities for labs, guest speakers, field trips, and other in-person cooperative learning. The class of 2019 for our seniors, graduation is around the corner. We know you are counting the days, as are many of your friends and family. If you have questions about how to support these youngsters on their big day, you can please direct them to our website or our social media site for graduation dates and times. We look forward to celebrating with you at Baxter Arena, beginning next week with our first graduation, which is actually, coincidentally, Benson High School. This Friday, we start our summer reading kickoff. Yes, summer is just a few days away, our summer vacation. This Friday, I will be joined by the very famous Pete the Cat and students from Educators Rising at South High School as we embark upon a summer reading kickoff tour aboard Ollie the Trolley. We will visit 4 elementary schools, Skinner Magnet, Jocelyn Elementary, Pawnee Elementary, and Castelar, to read to our students and share with them the importance of building a daily reading regimen, especially throughout the summer, so that students don't have so much of summer slide. So we're asking our parents and actually our older siblings and neighbors who may want to read to some of these youngsters, especially those who are really young and just acquiring those reading skills. And we look forward to celebrating with them back in August once they have completed all of that reading. Kudos to the schools that have placed in the Nebraska United States Academic Decathlon's Academic Pentathlon Middle School program. Macmillan Magnet School's 8th grade team earned first place, and their 7th grade team placed third. That's remarkable. Beveridge Magnet Middle School's 8th grade team placed third and are also qualified for nationals. Actually, both teams are qualified for nationals. In that same light, we also celebrate Destination Imagination regional and state competitions. Dundee Elementary School earning an award, and Mars Magnet Middle also earning an award. We have a lot of awards this time. Harrison Elementary and Saddlebrook earning awards in the Golden Sour Reading Championship. Very excited about that. And our last celebration is part of the the NFL draft. Noah Font, the former South High Packer, is the first Nebraska high school graduate drafted in the opening round of the NFL draft in 32 years. So congratulations to Noah Font. That's very cool. And this concludes my remarks for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. Board members, Ms. Ryan?
Mine is real quick. It's just kind of some information and also a happy Ramadan to those practicing. But today was the first day of Ramadan for our Muslim students and teachers and staff and everything. So wish your students happy Ramadan. The traditional saying is Ramadan Mubarak. And so it's normally marked by fasting until the evening, which is around like 8:30ish, and then also they have to stop eating and drinking about 2 hours before sunrise. So just to be aware of that for your students as they're finishing up the rest of their studies for the school year, and it's a joyous occasion as well. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Mrs. Godding.
I just want to give a shout out to Coach Hood, Rich Hood, who is wrapping up 40 years in Omaha Public Schools coaching swimming at Burke, and I was able to attend his retirement party on Saturday. Very fun event, and pretty cool to see all of the, a lot of his past students from years past come, and so just a great reminder of the impact that coaches and teachers have on students, and it was just a really cool event. And also just want to thank all my PTOs and PTAs. I've wrapped up now meeting with all of them, and want to thank them for the time that they gave to me during their meetings.
Thank you. Ms. Snipe.
I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes just to acknowledge the postcards that I have received, expressing the desire for us as board members to stand with teachers. Please know that I do 100% agree that effective teachers are important to the success of all of our students. I realize that a lot of teachers and people who attend board meetings don't really know me. I'm still very new, so I just want to take a couple of minutes of your time, just kind of introduce myself a little bit. If you don't know, I went to school in Subdistrict 8 my entire life. I went to Pawnee Elementary, so please say hi to the principal when you go, Dr. Logan. My son went to school in the District 2. He just received his diploma from Bryan last year. When I'm not on school board, I'm actually doing quite a few things in the community. One of them is presiding over the South Omaha Neighborhood Alliance. So I want you to know that when I see these postcards, I don't just see a lot of postcards. My son does. He's like, gosh, Mom, who is sending you stuff every day? But, you know, I recognize that there's leadership in that. I'm getting postcards from here to Scotts Bluff. And I've also tried to organize across the state, so I know what that is like, too. So please just know that I hear you, and I respect that, and I respect the leadership, the passion that I see, and the just the desire that I see. So I just wanted to share that. I acknowledge it. I see it, and I just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cracky.
First of all, I want to say that it's on, but there we go. I visited a couple schools, and they were great. I went to Jocelyn. The artwork is something else in there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't get over what was going on in there. And there was a lady who also did a couple of extra murals on walls in there. It was really great. I also went to Crestridge, and I had a wonderful time there, a great program. It wasn't just a program. You know, I go to programs, and then, but the program did it in Spanish and in English, but it wasn't just that. It was the way they brought in the students and what they did with it. And they played different instruments that I had not seen before. Something like, it was wooden, and they played it with their mallets, and they were graduated, and they were different instruments that we normally see. And they had something very long. It was like one of those things you bat around the rubber things in color, but they played on it. It was an instrument to them. And I just went away thinking, oh my heavens, this is so fantastic. I wish everybody could see what's going on in the schools. And the programs are just not programs, they are something else. I was just floating. Whenever I go into schools and they're great like that, I just come around bouncing out of there. But then I want to go back to something that you just acknowledged, and it was the postcards. Please know that, yes, I have gotten 80 of them. I have counted them. So I have comments like the board created the problem, just fix it, be creative, appreciate teachers. If there's anything you would know about me, I certainly appreciate teachers. I was a teacher forever. You know that. I worked hard as a teacher. I worked for the PAC rooms. I worked all throughout the district. And then I ran again to be on the board to help. Nobody helped me be on the board. I paid for this. I paid for it. So I did all that and walked around and enjoyed talking to people. They're great. And when it was all over and I was done walking, I wondered, well, where am I going to walk tonight? You know, I had it all planned out where I would go, and it was fun talking to people. Whether they're parochial or public or retired or anything, it's fun to share with them what we are doing and tell them that we'd be happy to visit our schools at any time. They can go into our schools, and I'd be happy to accompany them too, so that they wouldn't be shy about visiting. But I also want to acknowledge that I have gotten the email, the letters, the notes, way out to Scottsbluff, Grand Island, Norfolk, Adams. I've gotten them all over Nebraska. It doesn't matter. There's only so much. I'm just telling you right now what I tell people. I didn't create that problem, and so, you know, I'd love to fix everything for you. There's only so much money in the pot, and there's only so much money. I want to always be competitive with the other districts in Nebraska, and nationally, we try to do that, and also in the metro area. And that's always a big thing for me, to be metro area competitive. So I always ask that question. And we would give you more and more and more if we could. So I had to say that because I've gotten so much mail. And in a way, when you say something to me like, be appreciative of teachers, that's almost like, it hurts my feelings. It's somewhat
Mrs.
insulting.
Cracky, I also got cards too, and I just want to acknowledge
No, go on.
Troop 31 that's in the back of the room. Could you guys, young men, please stand up and be acknowledged? Everybody, please give these young men a round of applause. They could be sitting at home playing Fortnite, but they're here learning about a public board meeting. I do know what Fortnite is. At least I think I do. What schools are you? Are you guys OPS students? What schools are you from? Monroe? Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Moving on to public comment. We have two speakers who have submitted request to speak forms. The board has adopted policy 8346, which provides public comment for a period of 1 hour. That same policy limits individual speakers to a maximum of 5 minutes. We ask that you respect that time limit. Mr. Ray will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining, when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you are in need of an interpreter, please let Mr. Ray know, and one will be provided for you. If the subject of your public comment is related to a particular student or staff member, we ask that you not mention the student or staff member by name and instead provide that information to Mr. Ray. He will assist us in looking at those types of details for you. If you do not get an opportunity to speak and would like to submit any written commentary, please provide it to Mr. Ray. He will make sure each member of the board gets a copy. As a reminder, we ask that you please spell your name and state your address before you begin your public comment. It is now 7:16. Our first speaker is Tarina Chisholm? Tiara, I apologize. You can have your supporter come.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening and happy Mental Health Awareness Month. I am here as a concerned mother who wants to advocate for her child. Please forgive me if I become emotional. This weekend, I had cried so much because I felt like I failed my child by putting him in your BSP program. My heart is very heavy because as a mother, you always want to do what is appropriate for your child's needs, and that's what I thought I was doing. When I found out my son was struggling academically due to his mental health conditions, I was told about your program. I was led to believe that this would be the best option for him in order for him to receive the extra resources that he needed. But now I'm not sure if this is the most appropriate choice for my child or any other child. I was informed that this program would help my son to be integrated back into general education, but I'm feeling like this program is more so for a school to prison pipeline for them. My son was placed in a confined area in the back of his classroom, away from the rest of the children for over a month. This space was created with large dividers and a file cabinet, which blocked my son out of what was supposed to be a positive learning environment. My son's teacher lied to me and said that his supervisor, which is the special education director, suggested that this be done to control his behaviors. But you know what this really did to my son? It caused him to shut down. He started to hate school. His self-esteem changed, and he would come home regularly defeated and depressed. Mind you, my son is only 10. There were many times that my son had came home crying. Once he asked, "Mom, what is ODD?" because his teacher stated that that's what he had as he laughed at him. And another time, he stated that his teacher told him that he doesn't have any friends and that the other kids don't like to play with him. other children, and their parents have informed me that their kids have even came home telling them that they have witnessed this teacher not only picking on my child, but also allowing other students to do the same, and not only to him, but to other kids in your BSP program. How can these vulnerable children learn to make progress if your interventions is to send them out of the class whenever they are struggling, or when you don't want to implement consistent positive strategies? Majority of these children, current conditions causes them to struggle with being able to express themselves effectively, which then brings on the struggles to manage their emotions and then increases the behaviors. Most of these children feel like they do not have a voice because when they do speak, everyone shuts them out due to their past behaviors. They believe that no matter what they say, the teacher is always heard over them. I also did the same thing until last Tuesday. On Tuesday, I received a call from my son's teacher stating that my son cursed at some police officers and needed to go home. I was shocked due to my son being very fearful of officers, but I rushed to get him anyway. I later found out that this too was a lie after speaking with a witness which the teacher provided me the name of. In this crazy time, I just do not understand why would he make up such terrible accusations like this against any child, let alone a vulnerable African American boy. How can I trust my son? How can I trust that my son is safe when I leave him in the care of individuals who continue to treat him and make him feel like he is not worthy? I thought that this program was supposed to be a positive learning environment and that the BSP teachers are responsible for maintaining a classroom atmosphere conducive to enhancing interpersonal relationships, social skills, problem resolutions, and decision making. How can I send my son to a place where he is constantly belittled, degraded, and feel like he doesn't belong? I feel like my son and other children have been taken advantage of because of their inabilities to express themselves effectively. But today, I am their voice. So what are you going to do to change it?
Thank you. Can you please spell your name and state your address for us for the record, please?
Tierra, T-E, capital A, I-R-R-A, last name is Chisholm, C-H-I-S-M, and state my what?
Your address.
3912 North 21st Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68110. Come by anytime.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm. The district will be in contact with you in the future.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is B. Kate Wigg. Please state your, spell your name and state your address, please. Thank you.
It's technically Barbara Kate Wigg. I just go by Kate. No, that's what I wrote there.
I just read B, sorry.
No, it says B. B-A-R-B-A-R-A, K-A-T-E is what I go by, and then W-I-I-G. And my address is 6603 Glenwood Road. Technically, I'm wearing my OEA shirt, but I'm actually just speaking as myself. So I bleed OPS. My grandmother worked in the TAC building when it was Jocelyn Castle. My other grandmother was a drama teacher at South. My parents were born and raised OPS. I met my husband at Central High School. I currently have one son who's at North High School and one who is finishing Lewis and Clark and heading to Central High School. And I also happen to be 15 years teaching in the district at Lewis and Clark. I love this district. I have been in front of the board before as an advocate for the JROTC program, as a drama teacher who told the board why JROTC matters, because it was a huge part of my life when I was growing up and helped me speak publicly. And I've been in front of the board as an advocate for alternative education, because not all of our kids learn in the same way, and it's important and it matters that we're here. I can't tell you how much I love the kids in this district. I just left 8 hours with the most powerful kids on the planet. My advanced drama kids were just working with the ACP kids with developmental disabilities to show them that theater is a home for everyone. They just finished a production. I'm so proud of the offerings of OPS. I make my boys go to as many open houses as possible for their high schools because they're very different boys, and we offer so many different opportunities in high schools. One chose North because he wanted to buy a medical program. The other chose Central because he found a home there when he walked in. We have so many offerings for all of our kids, and I love it. And I'm struggling, you guys. I'm really struggling as a teacher, and I'm really worried about our future. I feel like you see me as an adversary, and I just can't tell you how that's not true. I want to be here. This is the only district I ever wanted to work in, ever. I have 150 students this semester, and they are powerful kids who put in a full 8-hour day. But if I give each of them a 2-minute assignment, an assignment that takes me 2 minutes to grade, that's 300 minutes. I'm allotted 210 minutes of personal plan time. And we know that a 2-minute to grade assignment is not rigorous. That's not my lesson plan time. That's not my other assignments. That's not the hours I put in afterwards. I am regularly at the school until 8 o'clock at night, unless the janitors kick me out earlier and force me to let them walk me to my car because they won't let me walk alone. And that can be alleviated with these new buildings, but to add new buildings, we have to attract and keep teachers. And in 15 years, I have mentored and trained a lot of teachers who have left. And it's a lot of emotional energy to put into people, and then they go. And I get the struggles, and I get the balanced budget. I am a middle school drama teacher trying to put on shows for $1.50 and a prayer. I just want to be able to do my job at a level where I can feel proud every day, where I can walk out and know that I gave everything I could to my kids, and also be able to be at home to raise my own children and also pay for their yearbook, because I think they deserve that in their high school. And I don't really have that right now, and frankly, I'm in the best possible situation, and I'm doing all right. But there's a lot of others who are struggling even more than me. Please just know I'm not your adversary. I show up every day for kids. If you could just show up for me at the board negotiation tables, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. We do have 2 items pulled off by Board Member Mr. Perlman. We pulled off Jackson Consulting Professional Development, as well as the Omaha Virtual School Program and Online Learning System. And those will be on action item. So I will approve the consent agenda without those 2 items. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda without those 2 items. I apologize.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Ryan.
Second.
Second by Dr. Holman. Any abstentions? Roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Gadding.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
Cracky.
Aye.
Perlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to action items, J1A, legislative update. I do believe our lobbyist is here, Mr. Lindsay. And Mr. Lindsay is going to give everybody on the board an update of where we currently are in the legislative session. We're at kind of the last final stretch, and then the committee's going to make a recommendation for the board to take a position on LB 289. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Tomorrow will be day 71 of the 90-day legislative session. It's when the
big stuff is starting to hit this week. Before I get into, this week we'll have tomorrow a bill that will impact TIOSA. In the afternoon, there will be the property tax relief package, which will also impact TIOSA. And on Wednesday, we'll have the budget, which will also impact TIOSA. So there's three significant bills that could have an impact on OPS financing. So starting with items that have had some activity, LB 31, which would require a work plan to transfer management of OSERS to the state, was signed by the governor since the bill had an emergency clause. It is in effect now, and work can begin on crafting that plan. That is overseen by the Nebraska Public Employees Retirement System and the Public Employees Retirement Board, and I'm sure there will be contact with OPS at some point in the near future. The budget was released on last Thursday. Included in that budget, and it'll be debated on Wednesday, included in that budget is a reduction in TIOSA of $25 million, which will have an impact on OPS. I'm thinking a reduction of between $4 and $5 million impact to our to where we'll end up with our TIOSA funding. LB 675 is the Education Department cleanup bill. It will be it's listed on the agenda for tomorrow morning. I don't know that we'll get to it. I believe we will. That bill has an amendment that would reduce the base limitation in TIOSA from 2.5% to 2%. The net impact of that is to implement the budget recommendation of reducing TIOSA by $25 million. And that will be debated tomorrow morning, we believe, and that amendment is likely to be adopted and the bill is likely to advance. And that brings us to LB 289, which is the only action item from the committee. LB 289 is the property tax relief school aid allocation bill that is extremely complex and extremely broad. It does a number of things. It changes income tax, makes some income tax changes, significant sales tax changes, increases the the sales tax rate by a half cent. It removes a number of exemptions from sales tax, and then the point of it is to develop additional dollars and then to allocate those dollars through the school aid formula to provide for property tax relief. The problem is when we get it for OPS is when we get into that allocation of school aid. It becomes, you've heard it said that TIOSA is complex right now, and this bill, TIOSA experts, when it came out, could, when I include among those Courtney and LPS's people, even NDE was not quite sure at the committee hearing. This thing is very complex now. It will change, it would change the maximum levy so that most districts would have different levies from each other. It would be dependent upon your real estate valuation increase. You would only be able to capture 2.5% of that, maximum of 2.5%. It would actually be whatever CPI is, and CPI would be capped at 2.5%. It would create foundation aid, thus reducing TIOSA aid. That foundation aid would be significant, and that's the mechanism used to move dollars from to rural districts. The committee looked at that and looked at the the board's current statement, policy statement on TIOSA, and found it violative of that policy statement in a number of areas. Primarily is that TIOSA is the Tax Equalization and Educational Opportunity Support Act. That's what the TIOSA stands for. This bill would go directly opposite of tax equalization. Tax equalization is, when it was first came about, was trying to get everybody's tax rate levy, or tax levy rate, excuse me, across the state roughly the same. The second part on educational opportunities was trying to get access to resources so that every child in the state would have access to a quality education. And doing that by those who were up, districts who might hit their maximum levy, like OPS, would have equalization aid to fund the needs that are determined that it takes to educate children. This bill would say equalization aid is just a certain number of dollars would go to each district, statewide average, I think property tax valuation for schools, multiplied by the number of students. So it wouldn't take into account other resources, whether you could go to other property tax resources, or what type of children, whether your children have additional needs, whether children in poverty, children who are ELL. It would not take that into consideration. All districts would be treated the same, and the foundation aid would go to those districts. Second thing, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the bill would eliminate the averaging adjustment. The averaging adjustment tries to assist high needs districts with low resources. OPS falls into that category. It has an adjustment to TIOSA that moves it closer to the state average spending per child. This was a key component in OPS and other districts dismissing their litigation about 10 years ago. There have been just about every year an attempt to weaken or repeal the averaging adjustment, and again, we're seeing that this year. Additionally, concerns about the bill, whether it's sustainable. It's designed to reduce the local funding contribution. That contribution would go down each year. By doing that, it intends to backfill that, and that local contribution, I should make clear, is property tax receipts. Tries to drive those down, backfill with TIOSA. So you can see down the road, you can project the first year, sort of project the second year, and then you really cannot project it at all. But you can imagine that if that's the design is to drive up TIOSA dollars, they're going to go up. They'll be up above $1.5 billion with the passage of this bill. What happens when TIOSA gets too big? I mentioned LB 675 this year. They want to reduce TIOSA by $25 million. That's what happens. I believe TIOSA has been changed 15 out of the last 24 years to reduce the amount of dollars being spent. So it is and it's not a criticism of the state. They have budget constraints as well. But we have to consider that, or OPS has to consider that in developing its policies, and that is that as TIOSA increases, we can expect that TIOSA at some point would have to be adjusted in the future to reduce it, and this would convert us to somewhere 60% plus reliant on TIOSA, so those cuts would have a disproportionate and very negative impact on OPS. And finally, it is intended to reduce school spending into the future. Spending is capped at the CPI. Spending increases are capped at the CPI, but the CPI is capped at 2.5%. So if it exceeds 2.5%, ground will be lost. More importantly, it does not take into account student growth. So our budget could increase by, we'll say, the 2.5%, by 2.5%, notwithstanding the fact that we're growing at about 1% a year. So we will immediately start falling behind because no enrollment or no opportunity for spending for that enrollment increase is accounted for. Second, it does not account for enrollment growth in poverty students, and I believe our growth is historically been an increase in poverty students. Third, it does not take into account for enrollment growth in the English language learners programs. And again, historically, that's where our growth has been. These are the concerns that were discussed at the legislative committee meeting, and the legislative committee had a recommendation to oppose LB 289.
And Mr. Lindsay, you used to be a former State Senator John Lindsay, LD9. How often is TIOSA fully funded in the legislature over the last 20-plus years?
The trigger words there are fully funded. It's always fully funded because they changed the formula and then fully fund the lowered formula. And that is, the formula has been changed, I believe, 26 out of the 29 years since it's been in effect. It's been, and I believe it is 15 out of the last 20 years, changed to reduce the overall appropriation necessary for TIOSA.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll open up to members of the board if you guys have any questions. The only bill that will be taken in action on is LB 289. My mic's going in and out, maybe. Mrs. Gotti.
I'm just curious as to your thoughts on changes that will happen to 289 before it moves forward, or if it moves forward. Do you think that'll happen, and we would still follow the TIOSA policy, giving the superintendent the opportunity to?
I think for the bill to move forward, it will have to have changes. I don't see it moving forward as it is currently drafted. And that's historically what we do is watch what amendments come up. And the floor amendments come up quickly, and you don't necessarily know what they'll be. But historically, what we've done is that the superintendent is made aware of those changes. Superintendent's aware of the board's policy on TIOSA, and then would make a determination implementing that board policy.
Great, thanks. And that's tomorrow? Did you say tomorrow it's going to be discussed?
Tomorrow afternoon at 1:30.
Mr. Perlman?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you can update us on Legislative Resolution 14CA. That's the TIF.
It's the TIF that has passed the legislature, will be on the ballot for a public vote in November of 20.
And do we know, even ballpark figure, what impact that would have on OPS's finance if that is something that the voters pass next year?
I don't know, and that's for the full board, that is the constitutional amendment that would allow extremely blighted property to have a 20-year term rather than a 15-year term as currently under most TIF projects. And we don't know because that is a constitutional amendment. It would need to be followed by implementing legislation, and it would depend what that implementing legislation would look like.
Do we know if the implementing language allowed for just a straight 5-year extension of TIF, do we know what that annual impact might be?
I don't know that.
Because in 2017, there was almost $50 million in TIF loans in Omaha. And so do we know what portion of those tax revenues is directed towards OPS?
About just under 10% of OPS valuation is under TIF.
And of OPS valuation, and that's?
Well, of OPS real property.
And
what we lose is that growth. As the property value increases, we're frozen at the TIF valuation for that 15-year period.
Oh, we're frozen, or does the district not receive any property tax revenue?
No, we receive the valuation.
It's just frozen as year one?
It's frozen before the project even starts, so if it's just an empty lot, what that lot's worth at that time, we're locked in for 15 years,
Okay.
which hurts the district when we grow about 500 students a year.
And what's the OPS valuation total?
I'm going to have to look
I mean,
over
it's in the
here.
billions, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, the real property number would be somewhere in the 20 range.
Okay. Okay. Is that just moving forward, because this will be on the ballot in, I don't know, 15 months? Is that a figure we could get so we can make an informed decision as to a position that our district should take?
Absolutely, and I have some information that I put together that I've been looking at on TIF, so I can share that.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Lindsay? Dr. Holman?
I move to approve item J1A, legislative update.
We'll be approving the matrix. I think that's LB 289 recommendation oppose. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Godding.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
Cracky.
Aye.
Perlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
9-0.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. We'll see you tomorrow. I believe Dr. Logan will be in Lincoln all day tomorrow. Yeah. Our next item on the agenda is J1B. Don't know who's giving this presentation. Dr. Turnquist? Oh, it's Mr. Salas. I knew there was a reason why you were at the board meeting. You weren't here just to look at me.
This one, Kim.
Oh, they turned the AC down.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Logan. This evening, the Student Transportation Division would like to provide you with a brief presentation on the vehicle replacement plan. The 13 buses presented tonight for purchase approval will serve as replacement for the 13 buses that will be removed from the fleet and declared surplus for the annual auction. These buses are owned and operated by Omaha Public Schools and support the special education program. These buses are not aligned with our contractor, STA, nor are these buses routed in alignment with the student assignment plan. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Tracy Schob, the Division Operations Specialist. She works closely with the Maintenance Department to prepare the annual assessment. Ms. Schob will discuss the process on how a unit qualifies for the replacement plan.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Logan. We will get started just with briefly giving you an overview of their fleet. We have 273 buses that OPS owns and operates. 228 of those buses are Type A buses, and 45 of those buses are Type C wheelchair buses. Overall, the units that we maintain, in addition to the 273 buses, also include nutrition service trucks, maintenance and operations vehicles, district cars, and multifunctional buses and activity vans, which are assigned at the high schools and some junior high. Pardon me. We have a guideline that we use to determine when it's time to replace buses. So we assess the vehicles, and if they meet 2 or more of the categories, then they are in alignment for, or in line to be replaced. That is, the vehicle must be 10 or years older. The labor and parts must be equal to or exceed the half of the original cost of the unit. The unit must exceed 150,000 miles, and we also assess the interior and exterior of the units. We are replacing, or proposing to replace 8 of the Type A buses. They're all 2004, year 2004, and the mileage range is well over 150,000 miles, starting with approximately 190,000. The mileage is probably a little bit higher now. From the time that this was actually put together. All of the units have extensive rusting. They also have issues with that vary from transmissions to rusted brakes to frequently changed injector pumps. This is just 2 examples of the 8 units that we propose to replace. Again, both are 2004. Year 2004, the original cost was $41,880, and the repairs on one unit have amounted to $46,424, and the repairs on the other unit, and again, these are just examples of the 8, is approximately $35,500. Mileage is approximately 200,000 on one and approximately 214,000 on the other. Again, both of the units show extensive rusting on brake lines, poor injectors, rusted or worn out wheelchair lift, AC repair, to name a few of the aspects of the buses that make these buses require replacement. This is next 2 examples of wheelchair buses that need to be replaced. All of the wheelchair buses that we're proposing to replace, again 5, are year 2001. And have the mileage from approximately 216,000 up to 238,000. We're proposing the replacement of these 5 units due to age and the difficulty with replacing the parts, due to the difficulty with obtaining parts for the bus chassis. And just to name a few of the issues that we have come across with these buses over the years, especially recently, include fuel lines, transmission lines, coolant lines. All of these are rusting. And the units that I will show you are running with no rear air, no rear suspension, which makes for a very rough ride for the kids. Just the wheelchair buses will accommodate up to 4 wheelchairs. Again, these are 2 of the units that we have for an example. Both of these units, well, all 5 are 2001 Freightliners. The original cost for the wheelchair buses at that time was approximately $56,000. The repair on these units are respectively $33,000 and $36,000. So that far exceeds the half of the original cost of these units. Again, excessive rust in the rear of the bus, with the wheelchair lifts wearing out, and running issues with the mileage, age, and difficulty with obtaining parts in the buses. And that concludes my update summary on these units that
Thank
we
you.
are proposing to replace.
Perfect. We're going to
Thank
open
you.
it up for board members. You guys have any questions about this? This is regular maintenance and routine. Dr. Holman?
Really quickly, thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
The cost amounts that are listed, are these what the buses cost at the point of purchase in 2001, or are these the new?
No.
price?
The wheelchair buses are much more expensive in this day and time. That represents the original cost in that year. So 2001, $56,000. Thank
I
you.
think there is a piece on it that shows the actual cost of the new buses.
Right, I think that we submitted information
It's in there.
showing, and we did go through a bid process.
Ms. Craggy?
Do we sell these for scrap or for parts, or what happens to them when they demolish them? And
We have an annual OPS surplus auction held in July, and we put the buses in the auction and sell them at that time.
and if they don't sell, what do we do with them?
First of all, we have always sold the buses.
Okay.
We have always sold all of the units. People from churches
Sure.
and daycares
Okay.
are very excited to have the opportunity to get to them.
Or somebody just paints it red as a Husker bus and drives it down to Lincoln?
Yes.
Any other questions? This is an action item, so I will entertain a motion to approve item J1B.
Move approval.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Crackey. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Cassidy. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Snow. Cassidy.
Aye.
Gotti.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
Cracky.
Aye.
Pearlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Snipe.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Moving on to item J1C. This is the first reading of the Code of Conduct for 1920 school year. Mr. Ray?
I can learn
Dr.
to understand
McFarland.
you much better if I can get familiar with the way you talk. I need your permission.
I agree.
That's how the code works.
Good evening, members of the board, President Snow, Dr. Logan. I'm here this evening with the leadership from our teachers union, the OEA, and we've come to you tonight with the first reading of the 2019 draft of the Student Code of Conduct. The Student Code is designed to support disciplinary actions, intervention strategies, and behavior resolutions for all students grades kindergarten through 12th grade in the Omaha Public Schools. Mr. Miller and I began this annual update process with a meeting early in the beginning of the second semester where we identified staff members that we invited to participate in our Code of Conduct Committee. Our committee was comprised of representation from principals, elementary, middle, and high school, alternative education program directors, teachers, our OEA leadership, curriculum and instruction support, school safety, and other student and community services staff members. We considered input from teachers, students, parents, and administrators. Much of the input we received came from real situations throughout the year that we've encountered with implementing the Student Code of Conduct. In April, we had the opportunity to present the draft of the 2019-20 code to the Policy Committee of the Board and have since received additional feedback from members that are included in tonight's reading. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you have all of the documents in front of you. We have the code, the big tome, In addition, we have a one-page handout that is the poster that includes the items that students are not supposed to have. It's made and it's inserted here in the code, and then also a summary sheet that I will review and go through. At this time, President Snow, I'd like to ask the pleasure of the board. There are several changes in the code that are merely grammatical or the inclusion of a date or a change of a date or a word. I'd like to skip those and just highlight those that are significant changes.
I highlight the high ones, and then if somebody is looking through, they'll have their own questions, so.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, let's begin. We'll start on page 2. On page 2, the recommendation is to remove the visitors to schools and guiding principles. That serves on the inside of the code. Our recommendation for removing is based on the fact that around the Code of Conduct is our school handbook pages, and each school identifies their process in the building for visitors to schools and checking in. So we are recommending replacing that page with, if you turn the page to page 3, multi-tiered system of support for behavior, MTSSB, as these are the guidelines that are implemented in all of our schools and that also are related to behavior and response. So we are advocating inserting that there. I could read it to you, but I think I'll just give you a moment to look that over.
You don't have to read it. Also, board members, if you do have questions while she's going through it, please let me know.
Thank you. The next significant change would be on page 9. And I'm going to highlight this just once, although at the beginning of each one of our levels of violation, we have the 4-leveled intervention and response quadrants. We have added to quadrant 4 to strike support the child's behavior and insert teach appropriate behaviors, as that's what we are doing with our Code of Conduct, is teaching our students the behaviors. I will skip from there to page 13. On page 13, under tobacco use of, near the bottom in the matrix, you will see that we are adding the words or at school activities. While the Code of Conduct does apply to activities in schools, we want to include the use of tobacco is also prohibited at any school activity regardless of the location. While we are on page 13, I would like to highlight for you about halfway down that matrix, you will see reckless behavior, and directly beneath that, reckless behavior resulting in personal injury. And I would like to highlight that because some of our more significant changes in the code actually refer to reckless behavior. And so just so that we all understand, when we talk about reckless behavior, it involves the creation of an unjustifiable risk of harm to others and a conscious and sometimes deliberate disregard for or indifference to that risk, resulting in substantial disruption. And the second item under there also includes reference to personal injury. And when I get to the point where we're talking about personal injury, we are aligning our definition to state statute. So from page 13, I would direct you to page 16. So on page 16 at the top, a level 3 violation is assault, no injury. We actually have in this current year's Code of Conduct 3 violations involving assault. One is assault, no injury. One is a level 4 violation that is assault with injury, and an additional level 4 violation which is assault to staff. We are looking to eliminate one of those level 4 violations, and that is assault to staff. And the reason being that assault by definition here is attempting to cause injury to another person, and we agree that another person refers to students, parents, anybody who comes into our buildings and our staff. We are going to including staff, because in many situations our students don't recognize that we're also talking about our staff in the building, and they just view other persons as people coming into our building. So our recommendation is to change assault, no injury, to add the additional words of including staff, and by knowingly and intentionally using force. That's the definition we use to establish assault, knowingly and intentionally using force that places another person in the reasonable apprehension or imminent personal injury. I'll move on.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
I just have a question about just the assault violations in the code. And I appreciate there has been a couple of changes. I saw a couple of emails, but one of them that I see that wasn't changed, and it looks like, I'm looking at page 25. It says assault, no injury, that you were just referring to. Does it require that the student intends to injure someone when they assault them, for them to be violating this policy?
When we talk about assault, yes, we are looking at knowing and intentional. Otherwise, it's reckless behavior.
But are we referring to actually doing the act or the result?
The use of force, so the act upon another person.
But the way it's written here is a student must intend the result.
So if a person, let me say as the example, I'm swinging my book bag. I'm real excited and I'm just swinging my book bag and I hit somebody with that. My intent may not have been to hit that person. That would be reckless behavior, and depending on the differentiation, whether it resulted in injury or it was a non-injury. Now, if I was swinging my book bag because I fully intended to hit a particular person, that would be assault, using force because I knowingly and intentionally use that force against an individual. Does that address your concern?
Sure, that does distinguish between reckless and intentional in that example, but I'm thinking of an example where two students are fighting and a teacher comes to break it up. The students are intentionally punching each other, and then they strike a teacher in the face or wherever. Under this definition, there's no intent by the student to either strike or hit the teacher. So would that be described as a reckless act or an intentional act? Because under the criminal law, it's intentional.
So that would be described as reckless behavior resulting in injury. And that was part of our rationale for removing assault, or well, actually one of the other significant changes when I get there is actually removing the violation that we had, which was injury to a staff member while attempting to intervene or break up a fight. Because we are actually going to use, if there is a situation where two students are engaged in a physical fight and a teacher intervenes to break up that fight and sustains an injury, we have the responsibility then in the building to determine, was that intentional? Did the student see that staff member and intend to hit that staff member? Or was it that the staff member was injured while intervening, which then would make it reckless behavior? And then again, based on the outcome, resulting in injury or reckless behavior.
All right. My recommendation would just, and just for what it's worth, is whenever anyone intends something, they have to live with the consequences. I mean, it's the act that is operative, not the result. And I would also just ask, like, if you look at the bottom of page 25, assault, no injury, and then the bottom of page 29, where I think that's assault with injury.
Yes.
Again, I just think they're worded just a little bit differently, and I'm not sure why. Because in assault with injury, again, that first sentence makes it a requirement that the student attempt to cause personal injury. And I'm not sure that should be a requirement, because I don't know how, in some circumstances, we could prove that a student intended to hurt someone.
Well, in the way that we are looking at the code, their intent is to use force directed at a particular individual. So the use of force toward somebody would be the assault, and then with injury if the person actually sustained the injury, as opposed to assault, no injury. And then again, intent, as you say, going to whether it is reckless behavior or whether it is assault.
Okay, thanks.
So also back on 16, you'll notice under Fighting Serious, we have added there law enforcement may be contacted, and again, that would be based on the nature of the event. As Dr. Logan describes, 2 students who dusted up in the hallway. That may be one situation, but depending on the outcome, that could be a serious fight. Was it on the main staircase? Did it gather a lot of students, a high disruption to the school? Or is it a situation where we've had multiple students and a variety of students involved that was a significant interruption to the day that we did need to contact law enforcement to help us because it was beyond the scope of staff? We want to make sure that people know that in some situations there may be law enforcement involved. I would move on to page 17. Again, under the violation of unlawful activity, we have added that law enforcement may be contacted, and unlawful activity would determine any activity that we don't already have listed in our code. For example, students who break into the school, that may be a situation where then breaking and entering, we would contact law enforcement. On page 19, this is really where we have some of that discussion that Mr. Perlman referred to. We are making the recommendation to remove under the level 4 violations assault of staff because we feel it is already covered in assault no injury or assault with injury. And then the more significant change, injury to a staff member attempting to intervene when preventing or breaking up a fight. And this really is the feedback that we received from our families and from our students in particular, who said that my intent was not to injure the staff member. My intent was the other student that I was engaged in the combat with or in the fight with, and the teacher got in the way. The student does have a very serious consequence for that, but it's already covered whether it's assault with injury because you intended to hit that teacher, or assault no injury, or reckless behavior causing injury. Staff member who goes to intervene and trips in the process and is knocked to the ground, there is a consequence for the student. The students didn't intend that to happen. However, that's part of the reckless behavior and fits in the definition. On page 20, weapon other than a firearm, again, depending on the situation, law enforcement may be contacted. On page 22, one of our level 2 violations listed back on page 13 is bus misconduct. We are leaving that in as a violation, even though we agree that oftentimes the misconduct on the bus is also something else that's identified in our code. For example, it may be a fight on the bus. That would also then be a fight, even though it occurred on the bus, just the same as it had happened in the school. But because of the nature of being on a bus with the bus driver, and in some situations there's an aide, in many situations there is not, there needs to be a differentiation about the behavior that's on a bus. We are recommending that we remove the safety guidelines for transportation students that are listed below, and you see that they are stricken through. And we are actually moving to later in the code, it will be on page 33 and 34, where we've added behavior rules for students receiving district-provided transportation. So on page 25, that is where you would see that reckless behavior resulting in personal injury, and we are striking here the language that we've been using, saying it includes the infliction of pain for which first aid or medical attention is sought. And again, thank you for the feedback. We are going to closely align with the state statute, which says personal injury shall mean physical pain, illness, or any impairment of physical condition. On page 27, we have adjusted, you will see, this is actually under the definition of drugs, possession, or under the influence. We have level of interventions and response. We are adding to that guidelines for secondary students. We have a variety of situations where we have students, and depending on their developmental level, it may guide us with what we would apply as far as the resolution. In this instance, you will see that we talk about a first offense would be a 3 to 5 day suspension. Again, depending on the developmental level of the student, we did have a student who was a second grader who had some drugs in his backpack. He knew they were there, he wasn't absolutely sure what they were, and it caused confusion with the administration as to following the guidelines in the Code of Conduct. So we are adding the guidelines for secondary students to that page. On page 29.
I have a question on page 27. I'm
Yes.
sorry, back on the drug piece. So is it only if they're located on school property?
Or school activities.
Or school activities. But let's just, so I was at the legal conference with our legal counsel. If it's a vehicle parked off of school property, tell me how we address that.
So if it's property where the students regularly park that is adjacent to the school property, for example, you know, in many of our high schools, several of our students don't get there early enough, they're not in the parking lot, they park adjacent, then the Code of Conduct does apply if it's an area where the students regularly park.
Do we clarify that in here? I'm just curious about that.
It is clarified, yes, I believe. I will go right to it here. We do clarify adjacent, and it is in our district handbook as well, but I believe
Okay.
when we get to the information,
As long as we clarify it, I just
We
didn't
do.
see it here, and
I believe it is under on page 30. Let's see. So on page 32, where we talk about behavior rules for conduct off school grounds, it is the belief of the Omaha Public Schools that it is important to support the total student. Expectations for our students go beyond the school day and into the community. We believe that part of the learning is accepting responsibility for one's actions, thus the school district is extending its authority to hours and places beyond the regularly perceived boundaries when conduct off school grounds causes a substantial disruption to the school environment. Our intent, so we make a reference there, but there's another place where we actually reference the adjacent, and it might be, I will get it to you. I know it's in here because we just actually discussed it last week.
okay.
So I believe I was on page 29.
I thought you were on 27.
With removing the assault of staff, and with assault with injury, we are adding the definition again to closely align to state statute, meaning physical pain, illness, or any impairment of physical condition. On page 30, you'll see where we have removed injury to a staff member attempting to intervene or preventing on and breaking up a fight. And then on 31 is where we will be inserting the other items that we use to identify in our building that are unacceptable for students to have, and the minute they have them, they should notify a teacher. On page 32, we are removing overnight suspension as one of our intervention and response terms. We actually removed it this year, and it's just an oversight that it wasn't removed in last year's code. On page 33 at the bottom, just a quick update. Our office has changed, and so we have changed the title. It used to read the Office of Community Schools and Family Engagement, and we have updated to Student and Community Services. On page 34, you will see where we have inserted the updated behavior rules for students receiving district-provided transportation. I'll give you a moment to look through that. But I will tell you on page 35, as I was preparing, I noticed a typo, and so we will correct at the top of page 35. The second bullet point says the school district is not responsible for items left on the bus. We will remove the E on 4.
I have a question regarding those practices that
Yes.
we're listing on page 34 and 35. What is our protocol for ensuring all students go through some type of training who are getting student-provided transportation?
At the beginning of the school year, all of the students do go through a training, and they have a video available that they can watch, and that is one of the guidelines. If we see that there have been some behaviors on the bus that principals can utilize, is to come out and have that reteaching of the video. There have been situations where transportation staff have also come out if needed, so there are a variety of things that can be done.
Do we actually show the video right off the bat, first day, so that everybody knows expectations and understanding versus waiting until there's an incident?
We do it at the beginning of the year. It may not be right off the bat at the first.
But
at the
all
start.
students
Yes.
go watch it in the gym? or
Have the
someplace?
opportunity to view the video.
Okay.
On page 39, school resource officers has been updated. The Office of School Safety is under the leadership of Lisa Utterback in Student and Community Services, and she and Donnie Morrison updated as they work closely with our school resource officers, so I'll give you a moment to review that. And certainly the highlight is that our administrators are responsible for the student code of conduct and applying school discipline.
Does this also work, sorry to interrupt, does this also work if an administrator sends the SRO to get a student, that SRO can turn around and say, actually, you're supposed to do it out of the code? So if I'm an administrator and something's happening and it falls under the code and I send the SRO to get the student or to work with the student, can that SRO say, are they aware that?
From a class, when you say
From
they...
a class,
From
or
the administrator would be getting the student from class. The
Yes, so
SRO
that-
would be acting in the capacity of a police officer. So our administrator may go with an SRO to the class if there's something that's law enforcement related.
So let me rephrase it. Are the SRO, is the school resource officers trained or informed that it's their duty to turn it back around to the administrator to do that? And
Oh,
it's
yes,
not
I
their
see.
job?
So, yes, Mr. Morrison and Ms. Utterback are working with our SROs regarding the training at the start of the year, and also with our security staff and our administrators.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have a quick question. How is serious bodily injury defined such that a SRO can intervene?
So that would be part of our understanding, that I would have to either refer to Ms. Utterback as they're working on the definition. State definition of serious bodily injury is quite severe. That's not necessarily what we use. I think it would depend on the memo of understanding or agreement that we have with our SROs. But I can't speak to how SROs are managing that.
Okay. I would just suggest just striking the word serious, because I think if any one of our students are about to be hurt physically, I think that the officer should be allowed to intervene.
Okay, thank you.
So this is an action item, correct?
Tonight's our first reading.
First
I believe it's an action item, yes.
So we can't really make many changes to this, because, is that correct, Mr. Ray?
Yes, you can make changes to it, and we'd vote on with those changes.
So we have to go through each individual change. Mr. Pearlman?
Well, let me, if this is just first reading and it can come back, can there be amendments in between? Because
Typically, what we've done of the code is a first reading and a second reading. If there's changes, we'd ask you to waive the second reading the next time. So you're voting once on this and not voting another time on something different.
So if it helps you, I have two changes. One is to strike the E in 4, back on our bus misconduct, and the other one would be to strike the word serious here and just use bodily injury.
But we have to make sure, because it went through policy committee, that we don't say we're going to add them, and then there's a board member that wants to vote against it. So, does it make sense? So if he wants something added, and there's another board member that doesn't want it added, how does that even?
Would that be a discussion?
I think there would have to be a discussion. So finish going through, and then we can get through
Okay,
this stuff.
so I'm keeping track of the changes we've made thus far.
Dr. Logan?
I'd like for us to make sure that the definition of serious, I understand Mr. Perlman's statement. I think that bodily injury could be interpreted as a low bar if it were something that was really minor. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the premise of what you're saying. I just feel like we might want to have a technical definition. I think that would be fair, so that we don't have some.
Completely agree.
Okay, thank you.
Problem solved? All right.
Okay. On page 42 and 43, on page, the section preceding page 42 is actually the OPS policy on attendance. And so we are recommending the additional inclusion of the district focus of Strive for 95, our attendance focus for the year. We will be continuing that, and so we wanted to include additional attendance information here, and I'll give you a moment to read through the attendance Strive for 95.
What's the rationale of adding this in the code? Or Dr. Logan?
It's to support our attendance focus for the district. So we have the actual
Well, you don't have to
attendance
go into
policy.
just trying to.
Yeah. It's been the focus in all of our schools and included in our school improvement plans.
I have a question on, back to the things that won't be counted toward intervention, and I know we went through this many years, it seems like in a row. Have we now established clear training for all of those individuals who sit in the attendance offices to ensure that they understand, you know, what gets counted against and et cetera?
So, yes, Cami Pacoda, who works in Student Community Services, is our lead attendance administrator, and she attends regularly the school secretary meetings. She has put together a handbook also for all staff who are entering attendance. And then through the work of our school support liaisons, we bring them in once a month, along with our elementary assistant principals who are assigned to schools that do not have a school support liaison, and do regular training with staff, and they all have the handbook about how we code attendance.
So my other question then, and this gets into when we finally get to the end of the school year and we look at attendance, do we have codes for each of these items so that, because I think in the past what we were seeing was really inconsistent data from attendance takers, because some people were marking it absent, some were not marking it absent, and so depending on the school you were at and overall, we could have some variations in what was
So based on the
documented.
attendance policy, that did help to define our codes that we have. So for example, bereavement is one of our codes that's actually in attendance. And that's based on policy. And then we do also, again, do the training with staff to make sure and provide a handbook for how we input. And that will be continuing again next year.
Great, thank you so much, because I think that does make a huge difference.
I really do want to give that shout out, though, to Mrs. Pacoda and the work that she's doing. In addition, on page 43, you see that we removed tardiness there, and we have included, even on the next page, other additional edits to update that information to reflect policy and practice as far as Strive for 95. And that concludes the edits to the 2019-20 Student Code of Conduct. Any other questions?
I do.
Yes?
So I understand that the code is a tool, or not a tool, it sets expectations. I noticed a lot in the code was, some of the changes that were removed was allowing more building control, discretion between the building administrators. Do you believe, or if you can answer this, that this will help with some of our suspensions and discipline of some of our students of color that are disproportionately in the district?
I'm always the optimist with how we address our student behavior, and much of what came out of our Student Code of Conduct Committee was really not talking so much about the code, but next steps of how we can help get information out about restorative practices, about looking at alternatives, and how we can be consistent. We've also implemented in Student and Community Services training next year for our deans of students at the secondary level, because of much of the work that they do in being a first line in addressing student behavior. And then I think you're going to see that that is also going to be reflected in the work of our multi-tiered system of support work, as they're looking at their behavior dashboard, really drilling down to some of that information as a building and saying, let's look at where we are with our discipline. What is the profile of a student, and how can we work more with staff? So it really is a multi-pronged approach through a variety of different networks.
Thank you. Ms. Cracky?
When we talk about tardies, I believe there used to be an idea of so many tardies would equate to a day missed in school. And how can you address that?
So we count absence by minutes from class.
Okay.
And so if a student is absent to school, we used to describe it as tardy to school. You're absent until you arrive at school, but those minutes do count. And yes, when the minutes add up to the total day count, it counts as a day.
Okay.
Otherwise, it is a partial.
Okay.
Mr. Perlman?
So, just a couple questions. Drug possession is a level 3, is that correct?
As a violation?
Right. So, if students are found with drugs on them in school, are police or the SRO always contacted?
Yes.
And when a student is found with drugs in school, are they always suspended?
Again, it would go to the developmental level of the student, and there are a variety of, for example, if a student is verified depending on their special education, there are a variety of things. So we do work to teach about behavior, and we certainly do look to be consistent. It is also determined on, is this a first offense with the student, a second offense, but there is always an intervention.
Do we know what percentage of students who are caught with drugs in school are suspended?
I wouldn't know the percentage right here, but I will tell you that frequently a suspension may be part of the resolution in addition to some teaching capacity, whether it's a referral to counseling, communication with the family, but I can't tell you. I would say frequently there are suspensions related to drug possession, but I can't tell you that absolutely every single time.
Okay, how does the suspension of students for drug possession reconcile with what I see at the bottom of page 45 that says that suspension is not considered intervention for drug use or abuse?
Well, I can give you my personal philosophy is that if we send a student home, that may be where they're getting their drugs.
Agreed.
So there has to be a teaching component as well and an intervention. Oftentimes, again, it could be a referral to a community agency, it can be a referral to one of our community counselors, it could be some intervention with the parents, and again, it would depend, but trying to do some reteaching of students. We have had situations where there have been students that, because they have brought drug paraphernalia or drugs to school and there has been intervention, that then we are searching the student's backpack when they come, or the parents are searching it at home.
But in every case, they're referred either to juvenile court or given a citation?
Not in every case. For example, as I said, there was a situation with a second grade student who was found in possession of a marijuana blunt, and he was not cited.
Well, sure, that's,
So again, it goes back to the developmental level in the situation.
for secondary students, are they always doing a citation?
I can't tell you that every single time they are. I do know that we notify the parents, and depending on the situation, our SROs are informed. Now, whether they act in the capacity as a professional law enforcement officer, that's their determination on whether they're going to issue a citation or not. But at the secondary level, our SROs are notified.
But I'm hearing that one of the main goals for the code is to offer consistency, and I would suspect that drug possession is something that, occurs frequently in the secondary schools. And I know every case is different.
Yes, and that's where I would say consistency depends on the student, the time, the situation, the number of times, the degree of the drug, the amount. It is, again, we shoot to have consistency as far as being a teaching or an intervention, but it will depend on the specific situation.
Okay. All right, thanks. Dr. McFarland,
Do you have any more questions? Sorry. Are we good? Sorry. Could you go back through the list of things that we went through?
Yes.
That you've added?
At this, yes.
If everybody can look at me and let me know if they're okay with that, just with eyeballs, then we can make a recommendation on the first reading. This did go through the policy committee, if I'm correct.
Yes, and I should have referenced that if you printed it off in color, you will notice that there was some of your ink that was blue. Those were the changes that were made since policy. So there was additional feedback that I had received from Mr. Ray, and so from board members, and so those were reflected in here. And that was in blue if you had it in color.
Appreciate it.
You bet. So on page 39, under the school resource officer, we are striking the word serious in serious bodily injury.
I thought we weren't, we were just going to come up with a definition for serious.
Okay. The state definition of serious bodily injury is very serious. It talks about losing limbs and next to death. And Mr. Perlman, I would probably refer to you.
But I absolutely agree with Dr. Logan. You got to find a happy medium. We don't, it can't be too subjective. And bodily injury could be, a scratch to a fingernail, Right.
So we are going to change the definition of serious bodily injury to a reference that we will work with school safety and with our SROs.
Thank you.
And then the other change was on bus misconduct, the actual write-up, which was under behavior rules on page 34, and I believe the actual change was on 35, and it was to strike the E in the second bullet point in the word for.
Ms. Scotty.
So the only question I would have is that, and all we need is 5 people to say yes, we want to vote for this, but I think the bigger question is, are we comfortable not knowing what the definition of serious is and waiting for that to be developed? Since
Feeling as if there's a pretty standard definition out there that we can use.
Yes, in fact, I'm sure that we already have definitions. For example,
So if that's the case, we could also, if we
Vote on
didn't
this.
like the definition at the next board meeting,
Correct.
update it and then waive the second reading, because you really need this done before we
Yes, I
get
would like
into
to get it
June
to
so that you
print.
can get it printed, and I understand all that.
I will get Mr. Ray a definition tomorrow. You bet.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor to approve item J1C with the edits by Dr. McFarland, second by Dr. Holman. Any other discussion?
I think you should have finished saying that before they said.
Or before I said it?
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate to.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1C with the edits mentioned, those two edits by Dr. McFarland. Mr. Smith?
So move.
Second.
This motion on the floor by Mr. Smith, second by Dr. Holman. Any other discussion? Mr. Perlman?
I would just urge at some point to just, somewhere in the code, get consistency of when students are going to be cited for drug possession. Because if we're trying to reduce disproportionate minority contact, I think not having clear guidelines could actually exacerbate that problem. I think it's the failure of having consistent policies on that is actually how those things happen. And so if that's the goal, and I think it is the goal of our board, then I think we need to be consistent about that. I don't want to see a situation where students at one school have their drugs flushed down the toilet and then other students have police called. It's just, it's something that happens every day in the school, and so we should have a policy on it.
And again, I apologize that I can't give you specific percentages, or we do take it very seriously. But thank you for the feedback.
Roll call, please.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Gadding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
Cracky?
Aye.
Perlman?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item J1D, Jackson Consulting Professional Development. I believe this was pulled by Mr. Perlman. Did you want anything, or did you just want to vote no against it?
Yeah, no, I wanted something.
Okay.
I have a couple
I'm just making sure.
I'd like to know if, and I probably should have asked earlier, but how many consultants are coming in for these 5 days?
Mrs. Comine, thank you. I didn't want to call you up if it was just a simple vote.
Total of 3. They will be providing training, professional development, and materials for all elementary, district leadership, school leadership, every kindergarten, first, second, and third grade teacher at the elementary level, and then every teacher at the secondary level, middle school and high school, for ELA.
And so the contract's for just under $125,000 plus costs? Is that?
The total is in the contract for $124,760,000. Approximately $32,000, a little bit more than $32,000 of that is through a continuation grants for secondary ELA.
Okay, so from the general fund, about $94,000?
Yeah, if you were to subtract the about 30, I think it's about $32,760 for secondary, then you'd have to subtract that, yes.
So that comes out to be about 3,000 per day per consultant?
Yes, there are 3 days of training for all elementary and secondary. They'll be training on August 7th, 8th, and 9th. And there's 3 consultants. 2 for elementary and 1 for secondary.
And can you describe again and just what they'll be training the teachers on?
So in elementary, they will be training teachers on the mastery guides, which is filling in a gap in the area of the foundational skills, specifically in the areas of phonemic awareness and phonics. It's also providing a specific PD for teachers to learn how to teach the structured teaching that is multisensory in phonemic awareness and phonics. It will also help us suffice with the Reading Improvement Act that goes into effect next fall. It will also support our upcoming ELA adoption because it will be placed as part of our multi-tier system of support. That's at the elementary level. In the secondary level, it's a supplemental resource for both elementary and secondary. At the secondary level, it's around thinking critically, comprehension skills. It will be used in conjunction with their resource collections, and teachers will each receive this textbook to help them teach summarizing theme, text structure, discussion, analysis, and argument and opinion.
Okay. Would it be possible at all to have any current employee in the district provide this sort of training?
Do we currently?
Right. Is there anyone qualified to give this sort of professional development?
So in order to do this specific targeted structured teaching, they would need to have the training because it's multisensory in nature, so they have to learn the procedures and routines.
Okay. So there isn't anyone currently in the district who's qualified to provide this training?
No.
Okay.
Not through the mastery guides.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Gotti?
And I might have missed this. Does it take place during teacher orientation, coming back to school? How many teachers will actually participate? Does everybody get to participate? Or I think that's my question.
So curriculum day is August 7th, 8th, and 9th. Every elementary teacher in grades kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, in addition to principals, leadership team, and also district leadership teams, and then every middle school and high school ELA teacher.
Okay, perfect. That's all I wanted to know. It's impacting many, not just the leadership team at the school.
Yes.
Ms. Crack?
What happens with grades 4, 5, 6? You said K3, and then you went on to 7, 8, 9.
Yes, because this is a two-part contract. One is for K3 mastery guides, and then the other is separate. It is for our middle school and high school.
And where are the teachers going for 4, 5, 6 on August 7th, 8th, 9th? Are they not in meetings?
The teachers in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade will also be participating in curriculum day, yes.
And their meetings will not be with this, it'll be with something else?
Yes, you are correct.
In reading?
Yes.
Okay.
In math, other curricular areas as well, yes.
And then, too, we will be infusing some math in those days, some other subjects with
Yes.
the elementary
Yes.
K3 teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I will, seeing no other questions, sir, I will entertain a motion to approve item J1D that is before us, Jackson Consulting Professional Development.
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Godding. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Perlman.
Got a little discussion. I just want to point out that at $3,000 a day, it comes out to be about $375 an hour. I just can't support it. We have budget issues. I'm sure she's a tremendous consultant, but we just don't have that kind of money right now, so that's why I'll oppose it.
I would just like to say that I know that you are looking at it that way, and I don't necessarily disagree. I look at it cost per teacher. This is like 2,000, at least 2,000, almost 2,000 elementary teachers, or maybe about 1,200, 3,000 total. So if I look at it, I always look at it at cost per teacher when I look at our unit cost. So if we went out to another bid, we could likely pay more. We felt it was cost-effective based on price per unit, which is price per teacher for the training. But thank you for your feedback.
Ms. Cracky.
Going back to fall conference and the cost of money, we could talk about the speakers that we had in. They were significant speakers with a significant amount of money that far surpassed what we're talking about. We're talking about $9,000 for the speaker, $10,000. So, I mean, this is really cutting it then with our, what we might used to have called fall conference.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Goding.
Aye.
Hallman.
Aye.
Cracky.
Aye.
Perlman.
No.
Ryan.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Snipe.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
8 aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Comine. Moving on to item J1E, Omaha Virtual School Program. This was all in the consent agenda and pulled off. I will, Mr. Perlman.
I don't have any questions at this time.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1E.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Dr. Holman, second by Ms. Ryan. Any discussion? Mr. Perlman.
I would just urge board members to vote against this contract for the extension with K-12 Incorporated. A couple weeks ago, I sent the board some information about just virtual schools and their efficacy, and we recently, I think it was last week, received some data for the first time on some of the goals and the results of the testing of the students who are enrolled in OPS's virtual academy, and just some stats, because we've never really talked about it at the board table. But in reading for 2016, 2017, 33% of students did not meet growth goals or had negative growth goals. 15% had negative growth in reading. And in 2017, 2018, that actually increased to 40%, showed either negative growth or did not meet the growth goals in the virtual schools. And then when we look at the math, kind of similar in 2016, 2017, 40% of the virtual students did not meet its growth goals or had negative growth. And that actually, just like in the reading, it actually increased in 2017, 2018, just a little bit of uptick. And if you look at the studies around the country, the OPS model, the way they do it is actually better than in most places, but the studies have been consistent, whether it be the Credo study or there's a study last year done by the National Education, it's a National Education Policy Center that shows just that virtual schools, students enrolled in virtual schools are not meeting expectations. From last year's report, one of the quotes in the studies was that the evidence is overwhelming that virtual schools as currently implemented are not working at primary and secondary levels of schools, and that finding has appeared year after year. In the Credo study from 2015, that students in virtual schools lost the equivalent of 180 instructional days in math and 72 instructional days in reading. It's another quote from last year's study. Established models for both full-time virtual and blended learning schools have been influenced considerably by corporate interests in private education management organizations, most notably K-12 Inc. And so the data we're seeing reflects what has been going on nationally, and that is that the virtual schools is not working for students, and so, that's why I just wanted to pull it off consent. So I'll be voting against it.
I just want to correct a few things. One, the virtual school model nationally is significantly different than it is here in the only virtual school in Nebraska. Virtual school here is a home for homeschoolers, parents who have elected to, and caregivers who have elected to teach their children at home for a variety of reasons, some faith reasons, some other kinds of reasons, and who have elected to understand that they can benefit from, and do benefit, their children do benefit from having instruction from a professional educator, and so therefore they enroll in our virtual school. Aside from the product concern, which I believe is a valid concern, and I understand that, I just want to make sure that we understand, that everyone who's listening or here today understands that this is a option for homeschooled students whose parents believe very strongly in a homeschool option, who have again decided that in the Omaha Public Schools they have an opportunity to benefit from a certified teacher in mathematics, a certified teacher in English, a certified teacher in science, a certified teacher in social studies, or whatever the subject may be. And so I just want to make sure that we are understanding and presenting the data in its full light, because we also have parents of those students who are also listening, and they are our students. This board represents them as they do students in brick and mortars, and to give them a fair representation of a choice that they've made. Thank you.
Mrs. Godding?
I had a couple comments, but does the data that you presented come from the data books? I just don't remember getting virtual school specific data. Did we get an email on that? And I missed it? Everybody else is kind of looking maybe like they don't remember getting it either, so.
I guess I would have to.
If we could just maybe all get that email, or again. Okay, because I think maybe we are missing that. One of the things that I think about is when you look back a couple of years, and when we first started, it was very new, and many students who have not been in a group learning environment have never taken tests, and that's a bit of an anxiety issue when you're going through that. And so it's first time experience of that can be new and different, and depending on the curriculum that particular student had, may or may not have prepared them as well for the test. And second, I don't know if the cohort is exactly the same in those 2 years. So when you look at the cohort, are you really seeing a decline, or are you just seeing new students come in who maybe came from a different type of curriculum environment and that are now being tested? So I think there's a lot of variables that can happen, especially with this population, because it's not a neighborhood that's defined and attending a specific school on a consistent basis. So, and we're also showing that these students are doing really, really well in general, and that having an opportunity to have a teacher who, as Dr. Logan pointed out, has that specialty is a benefit to them. When if I was a parent, I would teach math all day and you wouldn't get much else. So that would be a really bad thing for my kids. And so this is a great opportunity for individuals who have expertise in other areas to bring that to these students.
Thank you.
Mr. Perlman?
I agree with the cohort comment, and that's actually one of the questions I had as well, because that is important. I guess one other question I would have is, I'd like to see empirical data versus a growth target or an expectation, because I don't actually know what that means. And I don't know if it's taking into consideration some of the comments that you've made, Ms. Godding, to, I guess the only other way to put it is to take that into account, or, because a growth goal could be anything. And so without knowing what that means and without seeing empirical data, I guess I'm still unsure exactly how the students are performing.
Do we get a data book on virtual school students? No, okay.
All right, roll call, please. Mr. Ray?
Holman?
Aye.
Cracky?
Aye, but I don't know what we're doing here.
We're voting on J1E Omaha Virtual
Yeah,
School Program.
And we had a virtual school person come to the mic, didn't we? So why are we not letting her come to the mic? And
This was an
answer?
item that was originally on the consent agenda, and it was pulled off by Mr. Perlman,
All right.
and he was just voicing his opinion why he wasn't supporting the item. So,
All right. But she came up to the mic and said,
to present if needed, but he was already going to vote no on this item. He didn't have any questions, so he's already going to vote no. You didn't have any questions for her, did you? So we're already in the middle of the vote, so J1E, do you support?
I'm pass.
Pass?
I'm going to pass.
Okay, no vote. Mr. Ray?
Perlman?
No.
Ryan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Gadding?
Aye.
7 aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to J2A, Budget and Audit Committee update. Mrs. Gotti.
I'll make this really quick. We visited a little bit at the last budget meeting regarding some of the presentation that Ms. Bird had presented to us on audit work that was being done. We also talked about a couple of other audit items, and she's working on additional information for us, and hopefully we'll be able to meet sometime toward the end of this month. And it's pretty much focused on preparing for this next year's audit, I would say, was the vast majority of our conversation.
Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to J2B, Policy Committee update. Ms. Ryan?
The policy committee met on the 25th of April, and I'm also going to make this one quick. We really just discussed the code and then some of the, just aligning some policies with language that we had already been looking at, and those will come in front of the board at a later date. Mr. Ray also presented a policy review schedule for next 5 years coming out, so then we're not behind on policy from decades before, and we'll continue looking at that. We also discussed the reporting method for board members when they attend conferences, and Mr. Ray is going to look at a template for that so that it's all streamlined and we're reporting similar things. And our next committee meeting is the 30th of May.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. There is no receipt of reports. Dr. Holman?
I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, and legal counsel, negotiations, real estate, legal advice, and pending litigation.
There's a motion on the floor to go into closed session by Dr. Holman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Snipe. Roll call, please.
Cracky? Perlman?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Snipe?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Gadding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
Cracky?
Motion carries. Let me remind the board that the purpose for closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, and legal counsel, negotiations, real estate, legal advice, and pending litigation. Let me remind the board that let the record reflect that the board went into closed session at 9:02. Board members, you have till 9:08 to, hopefully if you can get in there in 2 minutes, we can get moving. Thank you. And also teachers, thank you for staying the entire meeting. We appreciate you. I know you guys have to work tomorrow, early in the morning. Thank you.